The global right has called on Nigerians to hold the government accountable for the laws it makes for its citizens. The executive director of the organization, Abiodun Baiyewu, made the call in Abuja while addressing newsmen at a high-level strategy meeting to discuss issues surrounding the regulation of civic freedoms in Nigeria.
Currently, we have more than 9 draconian bills at the National Assembly that are a threat to not just the civic space, to the security and the cohesion of our nationhood. And we cannot allow that to continue. We're going into 2023, and we must begin to think of how to engage as a people beyond just the voting and the politics around elections to ensure we are able to hold government accountable to the laws and the policies that they prefer to our civic space. The civic space belongs to the people of Nigeria and not just a hidden group of people. And so we must protect that. One of the things we're trying to do, this is a solutions lab of trying to find solutions to these issues. One of the things that we've readily identified is the role of citizens themselves and helping citizens to understand what these laws are. We're also discovering that these laws are not just at the federal level, but also at the state level. The repression at the state levels are as bad as at the federal levels, and how to engage subnational civil society organizations to ensure they're also holding state assemblies accountable, and that we're holding government at every level accountable to human rights norms.
Judiciary has so far not responded to the need of our people, and I think it is important that we draw that attention to them, that closing the digital space will also affect the judiciary. Because if they finish with the civil society and with the labor and all the groups, then the judiciary will be emasculated. So I think the judiciary has a role to play to ensure that any draconian law is set aside. For instance, we've seen Cybercrime Act that provides in section 24 that you cannot tweet or use social media or digital means to criticize government. We've seen now what they call a policy paper on IT use. We've seen NBC Act, Nigerian Broadcasting Commission Act, that restricts the media to broadcast the truth, facts. If the facts are against government, then NBC will censor you as a media house. What are the judiciary doing to set aside these laws? We've seen CAMA, Company Alarm Matters Act, that provides that civil society must report to a government institution. Where does that happen? And yet judiciary is not saying anything about it. I think they have a role to play. Not just judiciary, also the whole legal community, especially the Nigerian Bar Association. The lawyers have a social responsibility to ensure that these laws are made away with the country.
Governance is a continuum. On the one hand, yes, legislative experience is beneficial. But I can ask you the question, what has been the value of the legislative experience? Because if with legislative experience we are getting draconian laws enacted, the question you then ask is how faithful have the older legislators been, to the goals, aims, and positive aspirations of the populace? Because if they were faithful to those aims and positive aspirations of the populace, then you would not have legislations with draconian provisions enacted. And there's nothing that says in the new parliamentarians that could get elected in 2023 ahead of the in 2023 that you will not have, because at the end of the day, progressive legislation is anchored on progressive thinking. And if you don't have progressive-minded parliamentarians, they will not see the need to engage in progressive lawmaking for the benefit of the people.
This has been the trend for a while now, and it appears as if we are back into the military days where the civic space is threatened, on a daily basis. I believe that the government is doing this also because the civil society is not as strong as it's supposed to be, and it's not mobilizing enough. And that's why it's possible for any government to be able to do this. In the days of the military, the civil society was very strong and was very coordinated, to be able to resist this form of pressure by the government. So the civic space is gradually closing, because the Nigerian Bar Association is also not strong, also because there's a need for all of us to work together and coordinate ourselves. There's a big problem facing the country, and we cannot resolve it if we are not properly organized and coordinated to be able to fight it. In the military days, we're organized. So we are moving towards that as civil society, and that's one of the reasons why this meeting is called today, to strengthen effective coordination of the civil society, to be able to address the repressive rule that we are being faced on a daily basis, and also to be able to guarantee more freedom of speech and for an association for the Nigerian people.
You know, a good law should be one that should be in the interest of the people. It should be one that is not discriminatory, should protect the quality of citizens. And thirdly, it must be reasonable, so that it should not be harsh, it should not be too rigid against the citizens. But what you discover is that even the government appears to be fighting a battle. Yeah, we appear to be fighting a battle. There is crisis everywhere. And it looks like their own approach should be to attack citizens' freedom.